Hi, good morning everyone. Tengbo from Capital Dynamics again. Well, I hope you have enjoyed our previous videos in the last couple of months, and today it's about another very interesting topic, something that maybe most of you do not think about or are not aware of it. So what I'll do is as usual, based on our research, and let you know the facts. So today the topic is about why is the West, especially the United States and Britain, why are these two countries dividing up countries and people all over the world? You know, if you don't really sit down and do your research and analyze, you might think that this is actually not a big deal, right? But if you dig in deeper, you find that the consequences, the sufferings of tens of millions of people are horrendous, and the consequences suffered by these innocent people were actually created by United States and Britain. So what am I talking about? I'm referring to Ireland, for example, right? There's Northern Ireland, there's Republic of Ireland. And do you know that this beautiful country was divided by England in 1920? Then you have the famous Palestine-Israel, the conflict which is ongoing up to now, India and Pakistan, and then of course subsequently Pakistan and Bangladesh, Vietnam, you know, Germany, you know, Korea. After the Korean War, it was divided into North and South Korea. Then of course the current headlines that are catching the media all over the world is the mainland China Taiwan issue, right? So what I'll do is I'll very quickly go through what happened and what year and so on, right? So the first one we look at is the division of Ireland, dividing Ireland. As you can see in the map, there's Northern Ireland and then there's the Republic of Ireland. Northern Ireland is a smaller one. That's the one that's still ruled and dominated by UK. And the southern part, which is the larger one, is Republic of Ireland. You know, the Irish people are really wonderful people. I went to Dublin many years ago. Wonderful city, lovely people, very warm, very nice. But Britain colonized Ireland as early as the 12th century. That's about 900 years ago. And the colonization intensified over the subsequent centuries. And this colonization involved the confiscation of land from the Irish Catholics and redistributing them to the Protestant settlers, particularly in the north of Ireland. Now this created a demographic and economic imbalance, a huge economic imbalance between the north and the south that led to long-standing sectarian divisions. For those of you who are not familiar, you might want to look and do a search on IRA, the Irish Republican Army. Right? They were deemed as terrorists from the British side. On the Irish side, they were deemed as freedom fighters, fighting for their independence and unity. So, when the British government decided to partition Ireland, that was a pivotal moment. The act that created this was the Government of Ireland Act 1920, created two separate jurisdictions, Northern Ireland, which is still part of UK, and the rest of Ireland, which became Republic of Ireland. Now, after the partition, the British government, as usual, supported Northern Ireland and systematically discriminated against the Catholic nationalist community. The Catholics were denied equal rights in housing, employment, political representation, etc. Now we move on to another famous horrific creation by Britain, the division of Palestine and Israel. You may think that this is a problem between the two local people, between the Jewish and the Palestinians. Well, what sort of the announcement that was pivotal is known as the Balfour Declaration of 1917, right? Whereby the British government expressed support for a national home for the Jewish people, right, in Palestine. Now, the British government promised one group, which is the Jewish people, while disregarding the rights and aspirations of the Arab population, the Palestinians, who have been living there in the same piece of land for centuries. Now, this unilateral declaration created a sense of entitlement among the Jewish communities and alienated the local Arab population. This planted the seeds for the subsequent conflicts that we see lasting up to now. Following World War I, you have the League of Nations, which was the predecessor to United Nations. The League of Nations granted Britain the mandate over Palestine. This mandate was flawed because it tried to fulfill conflicting promises made to both the Jewish people and the Arabs. The British aimed to appease the Zionist aspirations while addressing Arab nationalistic sentiments. But this balancing act did not succeed. As a result, there was growing resentment and tensions between the two communities. Then, after the British mandate, particularly in the 1920s and 30s, there were many Jewish immigrants that went to Palestine, and these waves of immigration were actually encouraged. This was partly in response to the anti-Semitism in Europe, but the British government's immigration policy favored the Jewish settlement, leading to land disposition and increased anxiety among the Arab population. The feeling of encroachment by the Jewish settlers fostered very deep resentment and hostility. Of course, over time, tensions mount between the Jewish and the Arab communities, and Britain, as usual, failed to maintain order and peace and stability. There were major outbreaks of violence. For example, the Arab Revolt from 1936 to 1939, right? There was a lot of reasons, a lot of factors that led to the unrest. There were unhappiness over land rights, political representation, national identity, and very often the British responded to this with further repression. So when the British, of course, got smart, decided to relinquish their mandate and turn the question of Palestine over to United Nations, they abdicated their responsibility to resolve the conflict. Right? The United Nations partition plan proposed a division of Palestine into Jewish and Arab states. Right? The Jewish leaders accepted this plan, but on the Arab side, they rejected it because it was seen as a continuation of colonial rule. So the situation worsened, the situation did not improve. The division of this between the Palestinian and the Jewish people led to a very complex, very complicated situation, and then it led, of course, to the establishment of Israel and caused the displacements of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, a tragedy which is more popularly known as Nakba.
Are you tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Want to spend time on your hobbies or go out with your friends instead? Introducing iCapital, where you can get independent, objective, and comprehensive investment advice on the go. Available in English and Mandarin and can be accessed via app, website, and print copy. We provide thorough, first-hand research-based findings on listed companies, economies, and stock markets, and clear perspective of how markets interact and how they influence investments, as well as provide Malaysian and global stock recommendations, stock portfolios with outstanding performance to follow. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. From only 49 ringgit a year, start investing like a fund manager. Subscribe now at www.icapital.biz.
The other tragedy that I would like to remind our viewers is the division, the partition of India into India and Pakistan. This was as a result, as usual, of British brutal colonial rule in India, and Britain was purposely creating divisions among the Hindus and the Muslims. That is their typical style, and this divide and rule strategy worsened existing rivalries and mistrust, and of course from there more and more conflicts were caused. So the Indian National Congress aimed for a united India, while the Muslim League, led by the famous Muhammad Ali Jinnah, increasingly pushed for a separate Muslim state. And as usual, Britain's decision to partition India was made very hastily with alarming speed. I think literally the whole subcontinent was not prepared, and the colonial masters in London were also not prepared. So the Mountbatten Plan, which was proposed by Lord Louis Mountbatten, was primarily focused on the quick transfer of power, right? Reflecting British desire to run away from India as soon as possible. They were in India for hundreds of years, and suddenly they want to exit and partition India as quickly as possible. Now, India's subcontinent is a complex place, so the complexities of the entire Indian society were basically ignored by the colonial British rulers. In fact, they have been exploited by the British for centuries. So what I like to point out is the partitioning of India triggered one of the largest migrations in human history, right? And what most people do not know is up to about 1.5 to 2 million ordinary Indians and Muslims died because of this India partition tragedy. It was not planned. It was pushed and quickly executed. So, you know, India subcontinent is a big place. So Muslims from India were trying to rush back to Pakistan. The Hindus from Pakistan were trying to rush back to India, and there was horrific violence. And not just that, because of the way the British irresponsibly brutalized India, the borders of Kashmir, Kashmir up to now still remains a divided place, because the British Empire the politicians in London never clearly defined the borders of Kashmir. So you are left with a permanent problem. That is the division between India into Pakistan and India, and then subsequently Pakistan was divided into Pakistan and Bangladesh. Then in Asia you have Vietnam. Previously Vietnam was only one country, and it was colonized by France, and after World War II the United States chose to support the French colonial masters in Vietnam, right, as French wanted to reassert its control over Vietnam. This of course angered a lot and undermined a lot of nationalist movements led by famous figures like Ho Chi Minh, who wanted independence from the French and American colonial masters. Then you had the Geneva Conference in 1954 that tried to naively resolve the conflict by dividing Vietnam into two countries along the 17th parallel. So you have North Vietnam and South Vietnam. Of course, it didn't work. The US was the main figure in creating South Vietnam under the very famous corrupt President Ngo Dinh Diem, right, who was backed by the US, supported by the CIA, and so on. And his administration was particularly well known for repression of not just communist sympathizers in Vietnam, but against the Buddhist groups. So the North Vietnam got increasing support, and the South Vietnam, as usual, led by a corrupt president supported by America, became more and more alienated from the ordinary Vietnamese. Anyway, over the years, US involvement got more and more intensive and extensive. There was extensive bombing campaigns, there were chemical warfare, biological warfare against the Vietnamese people, consequences of which are still felt up to now. So that is the tragedy of Vietnam. I mean, now we see like Vietnam is the next economic tiger, but the Vietnam War left Vietnam as a country devastated. The economy was devastated, and there are deep scars. Although, like a lot of Asians, the Vietnamese people don't really show it, don't really say it, but there are deep scars in that country that may never heal. Then you go back to Europe, Germany, where after World War II, Germany was divided into East and West Germany. The West Germany came under the United States, and of course the allies of, like, say, France and UK, and East Germany came under Soviet control. And in the case of the East and West Germany, because, I don't know, I'm sounding a bit racist or whatever you want to call it, but they're Europeans. They are both sides white people. So the East and West Germany was easily reunited. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, East and West Germany very easily got reunited. No hassle, no problem. There's no such thing as what you saw, a war between North and South Vietnam, or like what is happening between mainland China and Taiwan. Then come back to, I'm going through by chronological order, come back to Asia again, Korea. Korea for a long time was a single country until, again, United States. And after, the general narrative is that North Korea invaded South Korea. But that kind of narrative is very callous, very irresponsible. The Korean War was really a proxy to the Cold War fought between the Soviet Union and United States. This was after World War II, right? And the two powers, the US and the former Soviet Union, decided to divide Korea into North and South along the 38 parallel, right? And of course, the North Korean government was supported by the Soviet Union, and the South Korea was supported by a US educated and US sponsored dictator by the name of Syngman Rhee, who was also totally corrupted. And his rule, 22 years, were very repressive, and thousands of his political opponents were murdered and assassinated. So a beautiful single country divided into North and South for what reason? So you find that up to now there are a lot of North Koreans, they are relatives of the same family. Some are living in North Korea, some are living in South Korea, and they have not been able to be reunited, not able to see each other for decades. So why is it that East and West Germany can get reunited so fast, so easily, so peacefully, and why is it that North and South Korea cannot be reunited in the same manner? And Vietnam, North and South Vietnam, had to be reunited through a horrible war where millions of innocent Vietnamese women, children were killed. Now we come to probably the most important division created by the United States. That is between mainland China and Taiwan. Now, you know the history, right? That Chiang Kai-shek, leading Kuomintang, lost the Civil War in China. And then America, United States, was supporting Chiang Kai-shek, Kuomintang, even before they lost the Civil War. They thought that Mao Zedong who is a communist, cannot be supported, and therefore they put all their support in terms of financial, in terms of military, diplomatic, behind Kuomintang. And Kuomintang lost because Chiang Kai-shek, the government was corrupted, and they were not popular with the millions of ordinary Chinese, whereas Communist Party under Chairman Mao was extremely popular with the ordinary Chinese. So then Chiang Kai-shek retreated to the island of Taiwan. Now, how can they do it? They did it with the aid of the assistance of America. America provided the ships, the planes, and so on and so forth to transport them, and provided military protection for Chiang Kai-shek to move over to Taiwan. So what do we have? We have a situation where in the 1972 Shanghai Communique signed between United States and China, declaring that Taiwan is always a part of mainland China. Up to now, 2024, United States does not live by the promises that were made in the Shanghai Communique and keep on provoking Taiwan. Be more democratic, be more independent, even though they would dare not say it. Never mind, it's okay, I don't say it, but I'm telling you, secede from China. Why? United States, why are you doing, and of course before that Britain, why are you doing things to people who have never invaded you, who have never attacked you, who have never harmed you, who were living peacefully on their own until you came with all your greed? Why don't you go back, America? Why don't you go back to where you came from and leave us Asians to live on our own, or solve the problem between the Palestinians and the Jewish communities, or let Northern Ireland and the Republic Island be one country again, one people again. It's very annoying, it's very frustrating when you keep hearing the nonsensical narrative from the Western media, from the Western politicians, oh, that we stand up for human rights, we believe in human rights. I'm lost for words. I call it bullshit. So stop bullshitting. I hope you enjoy the facts. Of course, I added a bit of descriptive adjectives. Maybe you can take away the adjectives, but just look at the facts, right? And I've given you many examples of how people who were united, living peacefully before, for no reasons, being torn apart. And I hope you will share, make this more known to more people, subscribe to our channel, and then click like. And by the way, one last thing, don't forget 26 October, 27 October, where we have our Investor Day, day 1 in the afternoon, day 2 on 27 October, the whole day. A lot of interesting talks about investments at the KLCC. With that, thank you very much and have a good weekend.